Well, welcome back, Fee, to A Photographic Life Seesaw. We've got one hell of a lot of stuff to talk about this week, and I've even got some reviews to add to the collection. So let's get started.
Terrific to be here as always, Grant. Thank you very much. And yeah, we have lots of interesting stuff going on. I mean, you wait like months for a terrific exhibition, and three of them open on the same night. So I wanted to kick off today with Gordon Parks, one of the three exhibitions that opened in London on Thursday last week, Thursday the 5th of March. Gordon Parks' We Shall Not Be Moved at the Alison Jack Gallery in Cork Street in the middle of London in Mayfair. And first of all, I want to kick off with this because the opportunity to see Gordon Parks is something that absolutely should not be missed. No matter what you do, guys and girls, for the rest of this podcast, go and see this if you possibly can. Gordon Parks. What should we say about Gordon Parks for the
Well,
uninitiated?
I think, if you're uninitiated, Google Gordon Parks and find out for yourself because you shouldn't be uninitiated. But I can't remember a Gordon Parks exhibition in the UK before
Well,
this
I,
one. Has there been one?
I think there may have been one, but this particular one is it's a good question, and I'm perusing my notes here and my handout from the gallery, which is very nicely done. It doesn't say that it's the first time his work has been shown in a one person exhibition. Um, but yeah, I certainly don't remember having seen anything about it at the usual suspects, the Tate
Yeah.
or First Gallery or anything.
Especially as it's so often exhibited in the States.
Yes, exactly.
So,
Um,
what do you think of this particular showing?
it's terrific. So first of all, it's not a huge exhibition. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There's about 20. Actually, I should have counted first. It's not a huge exhibition, but it's a big gallery space. Alison Jack Gallery, lovely art space in the center of Mayfair. Very cool, very white wall space. And what this exhibition does is it presents a selection of almost greatest hits in some ways. So it's curated by Brian Stevenson, who is an attorney. He is founder and executive director of the Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama. So obviously, what the direction this is coming from is more emphasis on the human rights, civil rights, the Black freedom movement and segregation and so on, rather than Gordon Parks' work for fashion photography for Vogue, for even for the farm security advisory, that kind of thing. Farm services, farm security,
I
you
think
know
it's
the one.
administration.
Uh, yeah, the FSA.
Yeah.
Um, Gordon Parks is such an interesting character. I think he's such a groundbreaking person and photographer. He's a polymath, and such an important part of the history of photography in the 20th century. So he was born in Canvas. He was the youngest of 15 children. His father was a poor farmer, well, a farmer in the segregated South. His mother died when he was 14 years old, and he started fending for himself really from a very, very young age. But he picked up a camera not so young, I think in his 20s, and he started showing his work to various people, and he ended up working for uh, the FSA, and then getting into different kinds of photography. But in the exhibition, for instance, you have work from the 1940s. One of his classic images is called American Gothic, Washington, D.C., 1942. And there's a print of that in this exhibition. It is a uh, it is a. I'll tell you what. I won't go into too many details about what it is because my notes are all over the place and there's a lot to talk about. But there are black and white pictures from the 1940s and 1950s There are pictures of marches. There are pictures, another famous one, Mr. and Mrs. Albert Thornton, Mobile, Alabama, 1956, which is an elderly couple, black couple, sitting on a sofa in their home, and above them is an old print of a photograph in black and white that sort of reflects their heritage or their grandparents or something. But it's very resonant in terms of like placing you in people's lives, and what the Black experience was. And then you have more direct things. Airline terminal, Atlanta, Georgia, 1956, same year. It's a white woman and a black woman side by side, and the black woman is a nanny or a nurse, and she's holding the white baby. Um, there's Malcolm X. There's Dr. King giving his speech. Um, there's images from a series that he shot for Life magazine, The Fontanelles at the Poverty Board in Harlem, again in the 1960s, where he followed this family living in Harlem and just documented their lives. And one of the most moving, chilling, moving, and beautiful, but rooms has got a selection of images that are purely about segregation. So there are three, two or three pictures that are basically showing white and colored drinking fountains and cafes in the South, in Alabama. And they're beautifully framed, they're beautiful colors, they're beautifully images, and they're beautiful big pieces. And of course, they document the horrors of the American century. And then just the last thing down in the basement gallery, there are images from The Invisible Man, which is a series he did with Ralph Ellison in Harlem. Great pictures. Um, and images from prisons, from St. Quentin, from prison in Chicago. So basically, it does touch on his greatest hits, I guess is the way you'd put it. There's also all of his books, or certainly a selection of his books, are available to peruse in the front of the gallery, and it's just amazing. It's really important. It's really great. You got to
I,
go.
yeah, I mean, I think if I remember rightly, he was also the director of the film Shaft.
Mhm. As I say, he was a polymath. He was
Yeah.
a director. He wrote music. He wrote poetry. He photographed fashion. He did absolutely everything, and he died in his 90s. He had a very full life. Um, an amazing character and a beautiful exhibition. And the introduction by this lawyer, Brian Stevenson, is very interesting, and obviously, points out that one reason why this exhibition makes sense now is because of what's going on in America right now and in the world right now, and the fact that the rights, the civil rights that Gordon Parks was photographing people as they fought for, they're under threat again.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? There's so much resonance there. And I think in a lot of ways, Parks was a 21st century photographer in the 20th century,
Yeah,
in that kind of embracing of all different areas that we talk so much about here on the podcast.
I think that's a
Um,
very good way of putting it. I'm just going to read one line from the press release here. It says, the exhibition presents a timely parallel between Park's photographs and the current crisis in America. Brian Stephen articulates how we are living in a moment where there's an intense and active effort of erasure, retreat from civil rights, and silencing of Black voices in history in the United States. And it goes on to say how Park's images provide insight and relevance to our current discourse. His work absolutely suggests resistance to bigotry and oppression. And like you just said, Grant, he was photographing this 80 years ago, more than that. And it just feels extremely timely, very now. And his whole approach and body of work and the way he made photography feels very, very resonant, very now.
so Gordon Parks, definitely somebody to check out. Now, picking up on that, as if we'd planned something, I recently have been to see a few exhibitions, and I often talk about the fact that There aren't many exhibitions happening outside of London or outside of major metropolises, and there have been a few things happening not too far from me, and I think they're worth discussing. Not dissimilar, I suppose, in a way to Gordon Parks, Don McCullin, who is 90 years of age this year. And there are two exhibitions of his work. Don McCullin Broken Beauty, which is at the Holborn Museum, which is in Bath in Somerset, and also Don McCullin 90, which is at the Hauser Wirth Gallery, which is in Bruton, which is also in Somerset, and is actually very close, or both of them are close to where he actually lives. So, in a sense, sort of a local photographer being put on in local gallery spaces. Now, the Broken Beauty, in fact, both of them are absolutely classic photographic exhibitions of the highest order. I mean, they are just beautifully presented, beautifully printed. The Holborn Museum, which I'd never been to before, is stunning. It's an amazing space, a beautiful old house, so worth going to see. And the work is a collection of the work that we all know from his career from London in the very beginning to Vietnam to Northern Ireland to Cyprus, the Middle East, and so on and so forth. It's got his still lifes, it's got his landscapes, and it's also got his most recent images of broken sculptures. Now, obviously, we're all aware of Don. Um, I find it very interesting in that I worked with Don quite a bit in the late 80s and early 90s when he was completely forgotten about. He wasn't getting commissioned, he wasn't getting work, and he certainly wasn't having his work exhibited. Now he's 90 years of age, and he's probably more vital in getting the work out there as he's ever been. But they were both very old-fashioned photographic exhibitions. Nothing wrong with that, but they're all framed behind glass, beautifully framed, beautiful spaces. The kind of thing I suppose we used to see a lot of.
It's said I'm wondering if the word elegiac has springing to mind the way you're describing it.
Yeah,
Is
kind
it
of.
who do you know who curated these and what was the aim of the two exhibitions? I mean, two exhibitions at the same time is quite something, actually. So what's
Yeah.
different? What's in Broken Beauty, for example?
Well,
Subject.
the Broken Beauty is basically a greatest hits, and that's why I think it's interesting following on from the Gordon Parks. The
Mm,
Broken Beauty element to it are these more recent photographs of he describes them as intimate studies of sculptures, Roman sculptures with broken arms, broken legs, and so forth.
mhm.
Those kind of sculptures that have kind of suffered through time. And that's the core of that exhibition. But there is also the greatest hits, as I say, alongside that. The Don McCullin 90 at Hauser Wirth, I mean, they've done a number of exhibitions of his work
Yeah.
before. And that's very much a kind of, they're describing them as complementary exhibitions. So they're kind of working. It's a bit of a drive to get between the two. Don't try and go on public transport. Otherwise, you'll lose the rest of your life trying to get from Bath to anywhere, let alone trying to park in Bath. Um, I think the one really interesting thing is there's a never before seen self portrait taken in 1963,
Mm,
um, which is in a kind of a stonemason's yard, a reclamation yard. And in 1963, he was photographing himself with broken statues. And now he's photographing broken statues. So there's a nice kind of link there.
yeah, that's a very that interesting. Is it continuity or is it that he's gone back to the old thing? Can you tell? I presume there must be a certain because what I have on my desk at the moment is the big catalogue from Don McCullin at the Tate Britain in 2019, which was an extremely important beautiful exhibition, very, very moving, but also, if you didn't get to the exhibition, a terrific catalogue. Some catalogues just really, really work. This one works. It's big, it's well printed, it's very well laid out and designed, and it tells the story very, very succinctly. I've also got his book, Unreasonable Behavior, which is a great. Have you read this book?
Yeah, yes, of course. I mean, I was just about to say unreasonable behavior, because I knew Don at the time, that came out. Quite a few more stories I could probably add, but you're right. It's an incredibly tragic story.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So, the two exhibitions then. So, what's in the Don McCullin at 90 then? So,
Similar.
the same. Okay. So, what's the point of having two separate exhibitions?
I don't know. I think that's a good question, but I do think that the Bath one is great because if you can get into Bath, you can go and you can see it, and it does
Yeah.
introduce his work. And I think this is the key to the
Yeah.
exhibitions I wanted to talk about, is
Yeah.
that it's introducing his work to people who are not going to London
Yeah.
and aren't seeing this work.
Yeah.
And how the work is Bruton, if people aren't aware, is a tiny village in the middle of Somerset that's become very kind of hip, and a bit like the Cotswolds.
Exactly.
And so having it there, there's a lovely restaurant, there's a lovely cafe, there's a
Yeah.
lovely garden. So both of them have a sense of, I think, placing this work a bit like the Gordon Parks, putting it in Cork Street, because
Mm.
Cork Street was always the home of fine art. It was always the
Mm.
home of painting and contemporary, the Waddington Gallery and so forth. So
Exactly.
by putting this work in these locations, I feel as if it's kind of giving it a different context, but also therefore bringing in a different kind of an audience to see it rather than just a hardcore photography audience.
Oh, definitely. But House and Worth also are they are an art
Mm.
gallery, as in art of all kind, but fine art and commercial and so on as well. So it is interesting in that it does various things. One being what you're just talking about, taking it out of the center of London and taking it out to other parts of the country and so on. But also, are we going through a bit of a phase at the moment where photography is again having a bit of a renaissance in terms of the Don McCullin and Gordon Parks were both reportage. They worked for newspapers, they worked for magazines, that kind of stuff. But now their work is being shown in galleries, in art galleries, not only because of the subject matter, but an awful lot because of the beauty of the work. There's an article in the Financial Times on the weekend, 8th, 9th, no, 7th, 8th of March, called Why Galleries Are Seeing the Bigger Picture. Photography. From Miller to Maplethorpe, from Roe Etheridge to Irwin Olaf, star snappers are drawing in huge crowds at exhibitions. And it's basically, yep, saying that art photography is a thing at the moment.
Yeah, I do feel that the FT could have done better than art snappers. I think that's the worst form of journalism.
Yes, they could. They could. And
It's
there's a few other things, but never mind. At least they give it more than half a page on the collecting section. So there you go.
Yeah, but I think that's an interesting word, isn't it, as well, collecting, because, a lot of this now is about selling the photographic prints.
Yeah.
And I do feel that, if you see the McCullin work, if you see the Gordon Parks work, you don't actually need to know anything about photography to be moved.
Exactly.
And I
Absolutely.
think that's really important.
Yeah. So
We,
are these
oh,
the
sorry, go on.
exhibitions when you saw them, just as a matter of interest, are they well attended?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Good.
I mean, they're pretty much jam-packed, actually.
Oh,
The Broken Beauty it's on now until the 4th of May, and
okay.
that's the one in Great Pulteney Street, the Holborn Museum. That's Holburne, and the
Mhm.
House of Worth is on until the 12th of April.
So if you have to prioritize, go to Worth first because it's closing in April. Got a
Yeah,
little longer on Broken Beauty.
exactly. Make sure you book somewhere close by for lunch because it's going to be a full day out and everywhere is always booked. That's my tip. Now,
The other thing I would ask about this, is there a new book or anything associated with these exhibitions?
not that I'm aware of, but to be honest with you, do we really need another Don McCullum book? I mean,
Probably not.
we've had so many. I mean, for a long time, there were very few.
Mm,
And over the last couple of years, we've had so many, including the huge masterwork book, which I can't remember what it's called, but I've got it here somewhere. Um, so yeah, I don't think we need to, but I do think if you want a really nice day out in Bath, definitely do it and see the McCullum.
I just want to have one other question about
Yeah.
this, which it sounds like a lovely experience. What did you think of the work, seeing it in the place, in the experience? How did the work move you
I
on
think
the occasion, having seen it and knowing and having worked with Dawn yourself?
I think that seeing it at the House of Worth, which is basically kind of an old barn which has been painted, white walls and so forth, it's perfectly okay. And that's why I say it's a very old school, black framed glass, behind glass, small prints exhibition, and fine. The one at the Holborn Museum, it's a beautiful old Georgian house, basically a big double-fronted Georgian house with lovely. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful location. So you're looking at it in sort of very high-ceilinged, large Georgian windows. The light's pouring in. It's beautifully set, and it has a solemnity to it, which I felt was really important to the work. It's one of those spaces that when you walk into it, you instantly feel you should whisper.
This, I think, is so, so, so important. As somebody who goes to all the exhibitions that I go to, the and the thing one of the things we talk about every month is a little bit what's the experience like when you go there? Is it memorable and does it enhance the is it an exhibition that could have been a book, or is it better to actually go to the exhibition if you can?
Yeah, exactly that. And I think this is an exhibition which a lot of people putting on exhibitions, I think, should go and see this. And just kind of, this is how you do it. If you're going to do it absolutely beautifully, professionally, you do it like that. And it doesn't need a book, but it would probably make you go and buy a book. It's that
That
kind of thing.
that's
But
really interesting.
the other thing I just wanted to talk about was something completely different, which I went to see, which was Martin Parr's 40, The Last Resort, 40 years on. So this is The Last Resort, the images created up in New Brighton, um, around between 1983 and 1985. They're the classic images, the girl turning round in the ice cream shop, all of those pictures that most people either hate Martin Parr for or think are revolutionary and incredibly important. The images that were his kind of step into color work from black and white and into color. And the book, The Last Resort, um, you would have loved the book, actually, the first edition, because at the exhibition, what I'm going to talk about, the original art director was there. And when he designed it in 85, when we were both art directing, he had drunk the Memphis juice, the postmodernist juice, and created a book, I think, and he felt was just really badly designed and has not aged well.
That sounds
Um,
amazing. By the way, but I was still in art college in 1985.
oh, okay. Well,
Doesn't matter.
well, so was I. However, I just started at L at the same time.
All right. Who's the art director of the book?
Oh
No.
gosh, I can't remember his name,
All
but
right, fine. Put it in the show
um,
notes. I'll check the show notes later.
yeah, he was great. And there's an interview with him in the little book that's been produced
Yeah.
to accompany the 40 years on exhibition. And actually, it's great. So Martin Parr obviously has recently died. This show was put on, obviously planned by Martin, um, as a memorial to him. And so it opened on a Friday and a Saturday with guided talks around the exhibition. And they had a food stall outside. And it was rammed for
Uh,
2 days. It was rammed. I'm not going to talk about the last resort work. It was framed, not behind glass, large digital prints in white frames, perfectly all right, nothing special. They did have some nice not bookcases, they had some kind of glass cabinets with books in them and ephemera, his camera and things like that,
mhm,
which were really nice to see. And they gave nice context. We always talk about that at exhibitions, the importance
mhm.
of context. But here's the thing I wanted to talk about. I have never seen so much merch attached to an exhibition and so much imaginative merch. Whereas the McCullin was old school,
Yeah.
This had a queue snaking out of the room. I should say it was at the Martin Parr Foundation, which is at the Paintworks in Bristol. It's just next to Temple Mead Station. It's very, very easy to get to. It's just one room, low ceilinged room, no natural light. That's it. You just walk around the three walls and you see the prints. But in the corner, they have a table filled with books. Now, they were selling the last resort cans of beer in pack in,
Okay.
whoa, hang on, in
Oh,
packs of six for £28.
what?
And people were buying packs and packs. It was like the old days of the old going over to Calais to get cheap beer and wine with.
Oh my God.
So obviously, people were seeing those as collectibles. As
That
well as that, they've produced a little book
story. All right.
which comes with the exhibition,
All right.
which was not particularly well produced, and I think the paper stock is not great. They're selling that at £25 for the small book,
Yeah.
which if you buy that, you get a free stick of rock. And the stick of rock has the words "The Last Resort" in the rock. Because
Okay.
on the original exhibition back in 85,
Mm,
they gave out sticks of rock and everybody turned up in the exhibition dressed for the beach.
okay.
So there was this sense of fun.
Okay.
This is what I'm saying. In addition to that, you could buy stickers, and they had
Ice stickers.
stickers of there was an octopus, or was there an octopus, or there was a piece of cake, and anyway, there are all these sorts of strange things, as well as all the books you can buy. So everybody was buying merch. I have never seen merch like it, and we're always talking about merch.
Yes, true. We are. It is true. We
Yeah.
are.
So that is on until the 24th of May at the Paintworks, the Martin Parr Foundation. But Martin was a local Bristol photographer. He lived in Bristol for a long time. So once again, local photographer exhibition. So both the McCullins and the Martin Parr, local photographers exhibiting their work. And that is the end of my my reviews for the first time
Right.
on this month.
Well, that is well done, and thank you for carrying the load from
Thank you.
carrying the pavements.
Not a problem.
But but I have to ask. I'm pretending. Let's swap places here for a moment. I have to say to you, okay, it does sound fun, but do you think people were there to see the art, or for the experience? Although, does it matter?
Well, this is the thing I think is really important. It's such a good question. I think it's the experience.
Okay,
And
I'm going to come back to the experience and why do people come to exhibitions before the end of this thing?
well, I think that's the key because if I go to see the Martin Parr, I'm going to go out and have a pizza. If I'm going to go to see the Don McCullin in Bath, that one in particular, I'm going to come out and I'd quite like something rather nice to eat with a nice glass of wine.
Exactly. Well, this is
So those are kind of the experiences. Or maybe in Bristol, I'll have a burger from a pop-up van or something. So
yeah,
I think that what the par was packed,
right.
and everybody was chatting to each other. There was lots of people, obviously, there were lots of people I know, and lots of people who listened to the podcast were there, who were coming up to me and speaking to me about stuff and what have you. So it had a real sense of community. So the par, I think, was very much about photography people. I think
Hmm.
the McCullin was very much about people going to see a photography exhibition.
So, what is one thing that's quite interesting about? Actually, I tell you what. Let's come back to that experience thing, because
We have,
that
because we've still got two shows to talk about.
exactly because I've got two shows to talk about, and I want to get them in before we go too far. Um, so coming back to the big smoke.
Mm.
And we've had so Don and Gordon and Martin all sort of documentaries in various ways. So the next exhibition that I saw, so three opened in London at the same night, and the one that I want to talk about next is National Portrait Gallery, Catherine Opie to be seen. Now, Catherine Opie, American photographer, she is based in LA and she photographs her community. And there was a very It was very how did they put it? They said it's like she um studies the connections between mainstream and infrequent society, Wikipedia puts it. In other words, she's a lesbian, and her friends are all uh, LGBTQIA, and so that's her community. So that's what she takes pictures of. So various things about this exhibition. One is you remember, some people will remember last month talking, we touched on the Taylor Wessing Prize last month or the month before, and I was whinging about how I don't think the Taylor Wessing Portrait Prize is about portraiture. Now, for those of us like me who are like, it's portraiture, this is pure portraiture. Most of the imagery, most of the works are just faces or posing faces are full length or three quarters of people on a background. That's it. There's no fancy clothing, there's no fancy accessory, there's no play acting going on apart from what the people, some of them are doing. And I personally absolutely loved it. I found it very I really love being able to immerse myself in a person's face or body or both and not be distracted by too many other things. Because I think that Catherine Opie takes beautiful pictures. Her lighting is lovely, her framing is lovely, and she has this pretty single-minded view of what you take pictures of. Although that said, she also has documentaries. So there are pictures of protests and of festivals and of people surfing and of football players. So she has various series of work. But I love the clarity of her vision. Mostly color, very strong, and coming back to the same scenes and the same people and the same sitters over many years, repeating, taking her friends and showing them, in black and white in the 90s, and then photographing them in color in the 2010s and so on. She photographs her little boy as a baby and then sort of growing up and so on. It sounds kind of sort of small, but it's quite big. The feeling of the work is quite big. The other thing I liked about it is that the exhibition is laid out in a series of rooms, and each room, even though it's a small space overall, each room has its own sort of color scheme that goes with the images. So it's very nicely designed. You can go from space to space, sort of immersing yourself in the work in one space, and then you can kind of walk out to somewhere else. So it's just really well put together. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I know her work. It's not something that I connect with particularly, not subject matter, but just approach,
Hmm.
really. And I think that approach can be, if I'm going to play devil's advocate here, can be perceived as being slightly boring or also slightly easy. And we know actually it shouldn't be either.
Hmm. It can be on the
Repetitive,
surface.
I should say.
On the surface, people can feel that, but I didn't feel that. What I found quite interesting, though, talking to quite a few other people about it later, is the number of people, particularly younger viewers, who either like who said, yes, I liked it, but it wasn't my thing.
Mm.
They were very fast to say this, and I said, what do you mean? And it was the subject matter that, so I was slightly surprised. Maybe this is one of those exhibitions which you go, you have your own, feelings about it. You walk around it. I've just said all the things, many of the things I loved about it. And then you talk to other people and you realize not everyone sees things the same way that you
Well,
do, obviously.
that's the great thing about photography and
It is.
and us
But
putting our opinions forward.
But I think it kind of reminded me a little bit about the Gordon Parks again, because the number of younger people who I would have assumed wouldn't even think about the fact that it's trans, it's lesbian and gay, and that the sexuality and gender identity is at the core of a work. To me, it's just like, yeah, obviously that's at the core of a work. That's not what I'm here for. But the number of people who are like wanted to who were sort of squeamish or skittish about that
I
in
think there's something
2026.
yeah, but I think that opens up a whole other discussion that sadly today we don't have time for. But I think it's a really interesting generational thing because you and I are of a similar generation, which I always sort of describe as post-punk, really.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel that we have a very different, we're much more open-minded
I
than
think
perhaps
I'm going to I
Generation
have
C.
to I need to recommend I need to get a few more of my fashion students, put it like that, to see this because my feeling is that it's not purely a generational thing, but I really was taken aback by the number of people who were, as I say, skittish, shall we say, about the who wanted to make it clear that they were not interested in the subject matter or that they it was not their thing. Like so this is maybe something that we'll come back to another time. Um, but I don't think, and I think it's a really beautiful exhibition. It's on until the 31st of May. I think it's really worth having a look at and taking on board everything you're saying. Some people might find it boring and repetitive. Some people might find images of lesbians enacting their masculine personas threatening. I don't know, but it's beautiful. I find it very beautiful, really nice. I
Okay.
wish I wish they'd had better merch.
Well, the merch thing now, I'll tell you that that is now my new theme for all exhibitions because
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the last exhibition I want to talk about, keeping us moving right along, is Jack. The also still opened on the 5th of March. Jack Davison portraits,
mm,
14 to 16 November. Now, Jack, this is in a time. Okay, first of all, I want to say I love Jack Davison's work. I love his fashion. I love his portraiture. I love the stories he shoots for Vogue and Luncheon and so on. So I was very excited to see this, and I think it's a lovely exhibition. But blimey, there's a lot of hype around it.
oh, that's controversial. I hope our friend Mr. Bill Shapiro is listening to this because I know he's a huge fan, so much so that he's actually bought some of the prints.
Well,
Um, but I agree with you. I don't love his work. Um, I think it's great. I think it's okay. Then I think it's fine. For me, um, it's like a lot of fashion work at the minute. It's reaching back into history and kind of, shall we say, being very, very informed by previous photographers' work. Because I, particularly the close-up portraits, the black and whites,
hmm.
I just see Paul Strand and Walker Evans on the subway. That's what I see.
So I think, having said there's a lot of hype about that, I'm not entirely sure that the hype is translating into people committing here. So going back to this experience and why do people go to exhibitions? Well, first of all, let me just not everyone has heard of this. And like I say, I love the exhibition. I love Jack Davison. I love everything he does. So I'm definitely saying go and see it. But what it is 90 portraits, 90 pictures in the gallery. And what they did is they street cast individuals from London and they photograph them. Jack Davison and his co-casting director, they photographed them over a period of 3 days, and the pictures are black and white. They're all tiny. They're the size of a small iPhone screen. They're printed in a what is it? Photopolymer gravure. So they look like etchings, and they've got this beautiful sooty quality to them, and they're very tiny, and they're printed on biggish sheets of white paper with plain black frames around them, and all 90 of them are shown around the edge of the gallery. In Cop Gallery, lovely white spaces like white floor, white walls, white ceiling. It's a white box
It's all white.
in Holborn.
Okay.
It's yes, it's all white. And it's beautiful, and you have to you can walk around and see it. And so first of all, the work is gorgeous. I personally, I was surprised because it wasn't what I expected. I think Paul Strand and Walker Evans. Yeah, no, I looked around it and thought this is like this is like they're like medieval faces. I literally walked around and thought people don't look like that, but of course they do look like that if you see them in a particular way. They're amazing little pictures. And it was lovely. Couple of things. One is that I was posting about it on Instagram, and somebody asked if you can get close to the images because they're so tiny and can you see them? Because we were talking about the importance of actually being able to make out what's going on. And you do, because they're so small, you do have to get like a few inches or so up close to them, which you couldn't do if there were a lot of people. But when I went on Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday afternoon, there was no one in the gallery. Maybe two or three other people came, and Wednesday did. So while there's a ton of buzz about it, and while everyone I spoke to who was like, well, "Are you going to go to the opening? Are you going to go to the opening?" In the end, I thought, I'm not going to go to the opening because it'll be rammed. But then nobody turned. So there's a certain amount of like, did people just go for the event? People should be going for the art,
Yeah, but you know they go for the event. But however, I would suggest he does some more gravure-looking cans of lager. That's obviously the way forward. Um,
obviously.
but you know what? I find it very difficult because I'm fighting myself sounding like a grumpy old man who listens to a new band and can only hear an old band in the new band.
Mm.
But at the same time, I'm also thinking of what the Brian Duffy photographer always used to say to me, which was, don't do what they do what they do and take it on further.
Mm.
And from what I've seen of these prints, and also I suppose because I've been looking recently at an awful lot of early 20th century photography um, printed in magazines as gravure, because gravure was the printing process. So you got very heavy blacks. Um, and thinking of, you're talking about etching, so you're thinking of Dürer or you're thinking of Kathy Kovacs or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't feel getting a casting to director to choose a load of people over 3 days, knocking out 90 prints and making them small and sticking them on a wall. I don't feel we're taking anything forward here. It feels to me like an idea that's done, and everyone gets very excited because of who he is and who he knows and who he photographs and where his work appears, which is absolutely fine. But I, if that was an exhibition of early Stieglitz or Steichen prints, and they had that same kind of feel, or Huygens or George Harel or any of those photographers working in that period, what is he doing that's different?
Well, he's doing what he's doing that different is different to what other people are doing now. So a couple of things. One is that we have spoken in the past, and you were very vehement at one point late last year about the importance of seeing new young photographers.
True,
You
true.
were talking about like there are too many dead people showing their work. We need to
Well,
see more. And it's
yeah, on this episode, we've spoken about one person who's 90, two
yeah,
people who are dead,
yeah.
and I don't know how old Catherine Opie is, probably in her
She's in her 60s.
60s. Yeah, there you go.
And Jack obviously is younger than that. So I think this is important, and I do believe that one thing is that you need to give people space to grow and so on. And there's taste as well. Like we're just saying about Catherine Opie, some people wouldn't be to everyone's taste in terms not only of the subject matter of this, but of the style and so on. But Jack Davison, what he's done here is not going to be to everybody's taste. I feel that he's taken a really specific idea and run with it.
Hmm.
And I love that he's run with it and done the 90 minutes. Honestly, if you go in and have a look at these little pictures, you do find it, I did find it astonishing how the subjects look. So this is the great thing about portraiture. If you do portraiture right, it's not telling you just something about, oh, we live in a multicultural society. It's not telling you something about diversity and fear of the apocalypse and stuff. It's telling you something about a person. And the thing about these and the thing about Catherine Opie is it's just a person. It's a person that looks weird sometimes, amazing, surreal, but makes you think, do people really look like that? It it works beautifully
Photography for the
as
love of photography as well, though, isn't it?
uh
That's
sorry.
it's photography for the love of photography.
It's photography for the love of photography and for the exploration of photography. That's one of
Yeah.
the things I think we have to be careful with. We have to know, we have to treasure photography as a way of helping us to see the world differently. That's one of the things that photographers do. Whether you go, in the end, I didn't really think it's that good or that or I didn't like it or whatever, that's different. But to do it a little bit differently, can I just, while I've got, I bent a piece of paper here because I went past it and I just want to pull this up before I forget, going back to Catherine Opie and to the the presentation outside of the actual exhibition on the second floor of the National Portrait Gallery. Um, there are various of her prints, her contemporary prints, positioned alongside the National Portrait Gallery's uh, own collection. And this is interesting because you have things like Isaac Julian, a portrait of him by her between Benjamin Disraeli and I think Charles Darwin. You have Lynette Yadomboki, the painter, by Catherine Opie next to P.L. Travers, who wrote Mary Poppins. And it's a little kind of like bam, bam, bam. But on the other hand, it's using portraiture and photography to make you look again and think about things and not think about distract, but think about humanity, human beings, what the face and the soul.
Yeah, no, listen, but we're all
Happy
for
to be had by
we're all
that.
for
Too much.
that. We're all for that, as you know. Yeah, so no doubt Bill's going to have a right go at me now for questioning that work. But if we didn't question it, what point would there be in having it? Surely it's to spark some discussion and debate. One
I,
thing
I
about that,
don't see it.
yeah, one thing about that, does he give any context as to why that approach was chosen for the printing and so forth?
Yes, I shall read it to you.
Oh, good. Let's finish on that.
Um, no, 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 no. Okay, this body of work unites Davison's lifelong commitment to portraiture with his recent exploration of photopolymer gravure printing, a process that brings tactile depth to the photographic object. Conceived as the first chapter in an ongoing series, Bill will be excited. Grant will not. The project began in London, where Davison, in collaboration with casting director Coco, with street cast individuals from across the city. What emerges is not a portrait of London, but a more intimate personal register of encounter and presence. The gravure installed as an immersive constellation
Wow.
within the gallery, the gravures surround the viewer with a continuous sequence of faces. Seen together, the portraits establish a quiet rhythm between individuality and collectivity. Printed at a deliberately intimate scale, the work functions as small vernacular objects closer in spirit to early mugshots, medieval icons, or Victorian silhouettes than to the monumental gestures of contemporary portraiture. Now, I think that there's a lot of, if one of my students wrote that, I'd say, skip the chat GPT. But I actually do think that I actually agree with what they're trying to say here.
I just wish that there was a little bit more honesty and could say work, following on from the work of such and such photographer and such photographer, rather than, oh, look, I'm doing this thing that's completely new, because I don't think it is. But there you go. That's just me.
There you go. That is just me. And I just wanted to say, anyway, I think all the exhibitions I've talked about are really good. You should try and go and see them. And talking merch again, there's a book with Jack Davis, which is a lovely book, but the quality of the printing of the book is totally different to the quality of the printing on the wall. And the quality of, because, as I say, they're etchings, I took photographs of them and you don't get the quality at all. These vernacular objects um, are better in real life. But the book's
Just,
nice, really nice.
just like everything. Everything's better in real life. Uh,
Exactly.
I
However,
will.
I hope Jack is taking notes and will be printing, kind of like beer cans and what have you for
I'm
the
looking
next.
for beer mats, beer cans, rock, candy floss. We're looking at the whole thing. Listen, Fee, as always, an absolute joy and a pleasure. Sorry for treading on your feet and bringing in a few of my own reviews uh,
No, no, no. We
this
like
month.
it when the audience gets involved.
I'm glad I'm the audience. Of course, if you're listening to this, don't think that you only have to go to those places to see the photographer's work. Do go online and see what you can see, find out about them, and use this as starting points. As
Exactly.
always, Fee,
Probably travel a bit too.
yeah, exactly. Have a nice day out in Somerset. Fee, always a pleasure, always a joy. See you next month.
Thanks a million, Grant. Same to you.